Welcome to Still Plays Galaxy of Heroes. This is Grand Arena, first match, final week of Season 35, and this is late. I was traveling, I recorded the matches, but didn't have an opportunity to record any audio for it. So this is just going to be more of a chill hang where whatever pops in my head, heavy on nonsense. I don't even remember what happened in these matches for the most part, so we'll just fill it in as I remember live. We begin this week in Kyber 2, which was not what I was hoping for because we're definitely not finishing this week in Kyber 2. We're going to jump to the recap of the previous week, just quickly hit on what was going on with the defense, and then we will break down the bracket before breaking down the opponent with a little bit more detail. We're starting with the quick recap on how the previous week went with my defense. My defense in general, as I've been playing in Kyber 2 and punching up against a lot of opponents, has been very light because I can't really afford to put a lot of strong teams on defense. I need them for countering. So this opponent, he beat me. His Traya, no Omicron, losing to Mon Mothma. Part of that is because Kyle Katarn counters that particular Traya counter fairly well, especially if you're not at relics, and this one only had a relic Traya. With the rest of these, he was able to beat up on a lot of these squads. He was a player with Grand Inquisitor, that's nice. And the Palpatine here, losing up to Maul, that's partly because of having a Datacron to put him, not a particularly great Datacron there. Oh, but that's probably because Bo and Bam don't benefit, and I put a lot of these Datacrons on before I had a deep set of Datacrons, but that was a week one problem. In week two, I could have swapped those out. And then with Fleet here, my Fleet doing a little bit of work, holding Maul, but in that particular match, I couldn't get through his defense. I just didn't have the teams for it. Round two, I did much better. My defense did very well. So we see Gas holding up against Malgus. This is another one of those Datacrons things where that was only placed on him because the tank ally revive. I swapped that out for this week. It's swapped for this week. Qui-Gon up against Qui-Gon. That's partly just Ki-Adi-Mundi is nice, but that's not really one of the better counters. Most of these are straightforward. We're going to go quickly through it. Grievous here up against CLS. That's the Datacron I've got on them, which is really just a stat boost because they're not getting the level 3 ability. Attempted Fifth Brother up against Padme, which I've attempted to do it myself up against weaker Padmes than this, and it just doesn't work because of the functionality of Padme's kit with how all that purge is going to turn into protection up and give them massive courage. So I'm guilty of it myself, trying it up. I've seen versions with nonsense Galactic Republic Jedi with Padme. They'll still beat you up. Malik here up against Radis. That's ambitious. Not surprised at lost. He's going to need... Radis is good. He's not going to be soloable by something like that. Final one. This was a default win. My opponent only went one attack for the rewards. Here's a partial overview of my bracket for this week, which is a fairly favorable Kyber 2 bracket, much better than the Kyber 2 bracket I had last week, but it's still going to be fairly tough. I wanted to fall into Kyber 3 because regardless of how well I do this week, I'm going to fall into Kyber 3, and I'm not going to perform well enough to get that crystal boost during the off week, which I could have been able to do if I lost that final match last week, fell into Kyber 3 for this week, which would allow me to climb up into Kyber 2. So that wasn't able to happen because that last matchup was a giveaway, and the only way for me to have lost it was to not even do an attack. Not an option. So here's what we're looking at. Zetas I actually am very favorable. I'm always going to be favorable there. I'm not even sure why we're looking at it. Omicrons, I'm right in the middle. I have a good Omicron income for a free-to-play player. I make sure to always get as many as possible. I'm careful about how and where I put them on. So I've got a number of them banked. I could actually be like this guy over here on the edge, Sony. He's got 15. I could be at 15, 16, but we're holding some back. I'm actually ready to put some down. We'll talk about that lower in this part here. GLs. I've got 3, but this is why this is a more favorable bracket than last week. Last week we were looking at all 6 and 7 GL players. There may have been one with 5. I think there was one with 5 last week, but he was the one exception. Everyone else was 6 minimum with one guy at 7. This week we've got players with 4 and 5 GLs, and that is much easier for me with 2 GLs to perform, because even though it says 3 GLs here, this is I'm recording this post me locking Jabba or unlocking Jabba, and I didn't have Jabba unlocked at the start of the week. So I am a 2 GL player, to make that clear. Relic units, I am low. I've always been low, but I'm cutting that deficit. We're getting closer. And I did have a lot of I did have all the Jabba requirements unlocked for this week. So the Hutt Cartel are now at Relic 5 for the most part. With the depth, this is becoming less and less meaningful as the game matures. Players are able to get caught up there, but I still have a good lead, and my opponent, Lord Rizza, he's actually fairly weak. Like at 138, what that is going to mean and indicate is he is going to run out of teams, and it won't necessarily stop a full clear, but it might mean he's going to be far less efficient, and that is what I'm hoping for. Now with the 6-dot mods, I'm usually fairly strong here, but it's something that I need to start giving attention because my lead is shrinking. I've got a lot of banked materials. We've been talking about that for a while, but I wanted to do it by now, but I've been holding off. I will announce it on the Discord definitely, and probably in a video. There's a video I want to do before we do it. Now the speed, so I'm at 25.48, my opponent's at 25.36. The top 500, I'm at 16.5, and my opponent's at 15.3. My opponent is right in the middle for most of this. It's good. The mods here, I'm all right with a 25 plus, 20 plus. I am the strongest, and the 15 plus, I am also the strongest. So you can see just the depth of the mods that I have, where I've developed the quality very well. There's not a lot of fluff. I've held back resources where only when I'm able to get a good mod out of it am I investing the resources. Now Datacrons here, my Datacrons are pretty good, except it's a little misleading. One of those level 9 Datacrons is for Jabba, which I didn't have unlocked to use. 2 of them, though, are for Inquisitors, which we will be able to benefit from. And you can see a lot of players not really engaging as much with this set. And actually, some of these numbers, like with Darth and Lord Rizza, I think because I'm recording this after Conquest has already happened, so these numbers have probably been boosted from Conquest participation. And I don't believe this is what it looked like at lock-in. Now, GLs here, only one other player in this bracket with a Jabba. There are 5 players with Lord Vader, a number of players without Rey. Little interesting. Now, the rest of this board here, you can see one of them here does not have Starkiller. There's actually another guy off screen who does not have Starkiller. Everyone else does, and at Relics. You can see where some of my Omicrons have not been applied with Admiratus. It's one I might put on. It's just, I don't think it makes enough of a difference to how it performs. It performs great without it. And there's a strong argument now to keep him for offense, because once you know how to counter him on defense, him being on defense is kind of like in that General Grievous level where it's going to be effective. It'll force your opponent into making choices, but it's not going to reliably get holds like some other teams would. But there's so many teams you got to set down on defense. You pick your battles. Now, Iden here is fine. What else we should not acknowledge? My dash, you can see another one without a Omicron, but that's one I'm probably going to apply soon. Here's what we should acknowledge is the players who don't have Omicrons on their Sauvages. There's only 4 of us with Ami Sauvage. That's one I would put on, like if I was this Sony guy at the edge here with a Gear 8 Sauvage, throw the Omicron on. And especially now with the gear update, gear is cheap. There's no excuses. Just all these characters, bring them up. Plenty usable. Same thing with Traya. I think a lot of players think you got to have relics before you apply those Omicrons. Not the case. Throw those Amis on. Gear 12, Gear 11, Traya plus Ami can do some work. It really punches up. Don't be afraid of those things. Qui-Gon, of course. We are seeing some people with some Ben Swolos. Gear 11, Gear 12, you can use them with your JTR if you're unlocking them and you don't have Ray, don't know how to use them. I've been using them this whole time with JTR. As soon as I figured out that I want R2 on the squad and not BB-8, completely opened things up for me because that will you can force either JTR or Swolo to be taunting or soft taunting by exposing them or leaving them out in the open. I shouldn't say expose. And they will draw in the hits and they can't die. It's great. Rest of this stuff here, just looking for anything wonky, like one player here without a relic, Maul. The rest of this is straightforward. In terms of the Radises, most everyone does. There's two players without a profundity in this bracket. A quick look here at his hotbot results. What I care about, the undersizes and the clears, these are pretty respectable, so that's a serious player. I like to look at the relic distribution, and you can look at this in the SWGOH data, but I don't know, I just like the shorthand of looking at it here, and it is fine. I like seeing it spread out like that. He does have a lot of relic 5s. Rest here, he's got the Lord Vader, he's got Sith Eternal Emperor. He's a 4GL player, so that gives me a fighting chance. All depends on his strategy, though. Swolo was unlocked, but not in a usable state, and a 6-star profundity. Here's our opponent analysis. We're going to be just looking at the depth of his speed mods, because it gives us a indication of how seriously he's taking his modding. So this is his General Skywalker's last 300 speed or higher character. That's only 18. I've got more than that. So something that could be a lot scarier. We've had opponents like with close to 30 characters above 300 speed. This just gives us an indication of how careful we need to be and how mindful. Because what I can do is I can just assume some characters are going to be slow at that point. Now, this is all mostly the same. I did change some of the datacrons for this week. Finally remembered to do that. The Malgus one being one of the datacrons I highlighted it in the recap. You can see it's level 3 now instead of that 8th brother one. That's just because during the week, that one turned from a tank revive into 8th brothers looking for Grand Inquisitor. And it didn't need to be there anymore. So Datacron's got a little bit of attention, the rest changed. Scythe is off of defense, or not the Scythe, but the Chimera is off of defense because I want to be able to test out the Scythe. So this is what my opponent's doing, Dash, Nute, Geos. Fairly manageable. You can see up above here again, this is some weak stuff with Starkiller and all that. So we're going to jump into this. I'm going to go with Wampa, and I'm actually going to pause and talk about this a little bit. So look at these secondaries here, because I'm going to take a lot of time deliberating about which one of these I want to put on, because this is a counter that has, I forget the odds, but it's like 70% win rate or maybe 50% win, whatever the win rate is in the SWGOH data. I was thinking that people were losing with this counter because they weren't using this Datacron with the damage over time, protection up Datacron. So I wasn't carefully selecting out which of these I put on my Wampa because I used this counter last week and won with it. So I thought we could be a little casual about it because I've got two here. I'm going to click on the other one now, and with this other one you can see I have 57% tenacity that can be placed on my Wampa, but I decide to go for the damage I put on this other one. And I think this was a mistake because I'm going to use this counter later in the week. You're going to see me win with it. You saw me win with it last week, but right now you are not going to see me win with it, and you're going to see it's going to be because of the staggers and some stuns, and it's just not going to go well. And I think it's because I didn't have that additional tenacity from that Datacron. I think that is what made the big difference with how this counter goes. Or it might just be excellent modding. I'd probably have to go back and forth between my footage, but that was not the result that I want. And I've done that counter 3 times now. I am 2 out of 3. All right, we've got Hutt Cartel up against Nute. Do I not go for it, or am I testing? What am I doing? I'm being foolish is what I'm doing. Because I've won this way before, so I think I can do it. Dark Trooper can very quickly go through B1. Maybe I should be going after B1. But I'm trying to eliminate Dooku quickly. And I don't get it. If he wasn't Relic 8, we would have been able to take him out. But maybe we win this one. I don't remember. Maybe I won it. I should probably be talking like I won this battle instead of I lost it, because it looks like I'm going to win it. So I save the Hutt Cartel for later. I use a cheaper, weaker counter to take out a squad, and that's exactly what I should have done, and I'm happy about it. It was another time I attempted this that I lost. Maybe not even this week. So it works out great. It's because Dark Trooper just eats through B1. And I go after Dooku first because Dooku was the only one who was going to mess that up. And I got to go to the large screen. All right, now we're taking a look at the Malgus squad. We're going to go after some of these stronger teams that we're seeing on this defense here. We'll be using my gas. This is just a standard, easier counter. Especially particularly up against this Malgus that we're going up against that doesn't have some stronger Sith with him, and he doesn't have the Datacron for the Malgus revive, which is very nice. Which I guess Talon is going to provide regardless if we took him out first. So it's actually probably a Datacron I wouldn't utilize if I was pairing him with Talon. But 3v3 is over, so the way I've been using Talon anyway has been with my Vader. I've been liking that. No, we're going after the sides. We'll eliminate Marauder here with Rex. I'm sure I do it, yeah. Saving the tenacity up for if I go down to the knees, which I do. I'm probably going to lose him now anyway, but we're going to hit Talon. Oh, we survived long enough. We can't. We're probably going to die though, so I'm going to try and hit Malgus, and we don't do really anything. But we do get to live for another day. Gas is back. We need that taunt to come down though, as we really would prefer to take out Talon first. And there goes Talon. And now we can take Malgus out with our full focus. We'll get another armor shred in a moment. You can see why we're not using too many aerial advantages on Malgus. It doesn't do much damage. There we go. Up next, dealing with this gas. What am I going to do? Starkiller? That's good. So we're working on Starkiller now. Throwing on... Yeah, we don't have a... There's not a great datacron for Starkiller right now. We're just going to go with, I think, the weakest ally getting the extra turn meter. But really it's going to be more about the extra stat boost. So I'm finally caught up on Bad Batch. I'm liking it. Good enough. I might talk about it in the last video this week, and act like I haven't seen all the episodes. It's because I recorded that one live, and this one I'm recording several days after that one. But as I've been traveling, I was able to download them on the app and watch them on the plane. So we're caught up now. And I do think it's better than season 1. I just wish they were more ambitious. And I'm hoping that later in the season we get to see some of that, because the trailer did look pretty fantastic. I'm glad that the Hunter Omega storyline has been dropped. I didn't need more of him being frustrated, of like her being put in threatening situations. That got very stale last season. Alright, you're going to see me. We're going up against Geos, and not even fully relic Geos, so we're going to get some stats, and we are possibly going to go for a solo. Turn meter wouldn't be a bad idea. I'm just finding the combination of secondary stats that I'd like to place with him. Yeah, so those extra stats are going to help. Go for the sides first to bring down the health pool. Make sure that when we chuck this thing, that Brood Alpha goes down. And going pretty well. I think we're going to shift more into some nonsense talk, unless one of these battles get particularly interesting. Few things on my head. One of the things I watched recently was the rehearsal that was on HBO, the Nathan Fielder show. It's 6 episodes. It is bizarre and fantastic. I absolutely loved it. But you gotta, it stretches your patience, as his stuff does. So if that's not your style of comedy, you're going to have a tough time with it. But it's the commitment to the bit is on a completely different level, and it is truly impressive, the things that he does. I loved it. This here was a risky play, especially with Dash. Now, the idea here is that she's kind of a decent counter sometimes. I don't think this worked, though. And is this camera out of focus? Here's what I should have done. I should have put the stealth onto JTR, not onto or I should have put the foresight onto JTR, not Solo, because I need Solo to not be getting stunned so that he can go after Vandor and take him out. The AoEs are going to take out JTR and eliminate me. My only chance is Swolo, and I'm not giving him the opportunities to do the damage he needs to do. I think I misplayed it. I don't know if it would have made a difference, but I definitely misplayed it. And we're going to pause for a moment. We had to pause because the cat had decided that they want to scratch a piece of furniture that they didn't scratch before. Or at least was smart enough to not do them in my vicinity, which she's now doing. Now, Hutt Cartel, we are going to use. I'm looking for some kind of datacron. The tank revive one is not really super relevant with Chrysanthemum because Chrysanthemum's going to revive anyway under the right conditions. So we're looking for some other stats going on. Throw it on the disarm. It's not going to do much on L3, but we throw it on anyway. Now start spreading those thermals. I failed to realize, you can see that the taunt was off of L3, so as soon as we realized that, better off. Now we can blow them up. It looks like it didn't trigger the payout though, which it should have. Bonus turn. Okay, no, the payout's active. We're fine. Convert all that, whatever it's called, into more of the other thing that I can't remember the name of. Which just, it allows Lando to take multiple hits on his basic and starts boosting his damage. It's good stuff to do. But you can see that this just crushed them. Wouldn't have crushed them, but before relics they would have died to the AoEs from dash. But now that they are stronger, this works out good and great. But it's one of those things that now I have Jabba. I probably won't be using these characters in this combination again, especially Chrysanthemum. It's going to be with Jabba. So next season, we're going to see completely different uses of the Hutt Cartel characters. But they did great. Like, this combo was great while we worked towards that project. Perfectly usable at Gear 11, which is what I like to see. Now, you can see here, actually, we might not win this, which is annoying, because the tenacity up is preventing us from landing thermals. And now that I'm remembering this, I think that's exactly what happens, because we're also not landing armor shreds, which is what we would need to get through this. And you can see that he's out, or she's outpacing the damage that we're doing. So I'm trying to take more basics with Lando so that we can boost our damage with that Bib Fortuna ability. Now we've maxed it out with the 5 stacks. We've hit auto to try and get through this. We do have some thermals on right now. Do I get through this, or is this going to be a timeout? I wonder if maybe I forget the conditions in which he lands armor shred, because that's what we really need. No, it's not looking good. 18 seconds. Yeah. And unfortunately, this is a timeout, and this dash team is taking us a lot of attempts. So now we got to find a cleanup. And I don't remember what I do. But what we're trying to do is save our good teams for the back wall and for some other squads, because I need the flexibility of having my stronger counters. Okay, so we're going to use ASing, Mando, Embo. Characters I'm probably not going to use in another combination, and characters that I'm not worried about L3 eliminating. Am I really? What am I going to do? Okay, we'll use Greedo instead. Just slightly stronger, faster, better mods, and it's going to help with that prestigious quest. This is all good stuff to do. And we don't even need the disintegrate. Alright, so we burst through that. Let's check out this back wall. Now there's the Lord Vader. This is why we're trying to be a little careful, because I knew he was going to use at least one of his GLs somewhere. I'm looking at the GMK because he has that tank revive Datacron. So I don't have a lot of confidence that my Fennec is going to do very well. And if Fennec doesn't make a lot of progress, that's going to be a waste of an attack. But with JMK, even if he loses, he's going to set me up to be in a position in which Fennec will win. Fennec is not going to do that. At least my Fennec is not going to do that. So that's the logic here. And I don't remember if I do this in 1 or 2, but it goes well enough. Now, here's the other thing I felt like rambling about today. It's about all this stuff about the Oscars and what things get nominated. And part of it is there's always this like uproar from the nerd communities about how certain movies are not getting attention. This time it is Batman not getting attention. There's been other versions of this, and when a movie is truly worthy of it, and I do love Batman, and I do think it should have been nominated for certain awards, like cinematography, or Top Gun Maverick probably should have been nominated for cinematography. But I don't mind the Oscars being snobby. I think that's one of the features of it. And I think that actually by trying to appeal to a wider base has made the Oscars irrelevant. Like, who cares? Like, most of you are going to be too young for this. If you remember, if you're closer to my age and you were using IMDb, before IMDb allowed for anyone to vote on the top 100 movie list. That top 100 movie list was excellent. You could really use IMDb as a resource to learn about things that you didn't know about before. And then as soon as they changed the algorithm so that anyone with an account could vote on movies, suddenly the top 10 became The Matrix, Spider-Man, and a bunch of movies that are not the top 10 best movies. It became a joke. It became a farce. And IMDb only became relevant for figuring out who was in a movie, which is not even relevant for that anymore because it's not that good at doing it. Wikipedia is better at figuring out who was in what movie. It's become this ad-laden, useless resource. Now, the Academy needs to do a much better job because they keep nominating horrible movies and awarding a lot of terrible movies as Best Picture. They do not understand what movies are going to be good in a year or 5 years or 10 years, because some of these movies like Crash or movies like The Green Book should not be Best Pictures. They're not that quality. They're just these movies that these movies that think they're talking about these topics in a smart way that aren't really. They're a little cloying, and that's why these movies have completely been forgotten within a year or so. Like the two examples I brought up happen to be about racism, and that wasn't intentional, because there are movies like American History X, same topic, which people still talk about, that are excellent movies. But there's this mode of movies that the Oscars tends to reward that are not very good or that hold up. Like another movie I watched somewhat recently is 1917. That was nominated for Best Picture. I forget if it won the Oscar for Best Picture. That movie's not very good. I gotta fix this. So we'll get back to that. But I want to talk about this one because I've tried a lot of now I'm gonna win this. That might be because of the Datacron. It may also be because of this combination of second sister and eighth sister, because I've tried to make fifth brother work in 3v3 with seventh and ninth sister, and it didn't work out for me. And for whatever reason, this one has. And it might just be the Datacron. But I am 100% on using it so far. These combination of characters. Now, what was I? It was 1917. One second, this particular stretch of video is gonna run out soon. I got to get another. The next file going. So Iden here. Am I gonna savage it? Do I savage it? This is what. No, I'm gonna bad batch it, which I don't think I should do. This works up against weaker Idens, which is why I'm considering it. Yeah, we're gonna savage it. No, we go for it. I think I'm gonna regret it. Because with any relic characters, it's just, you gotta be outpacing, and it just spirals out of control. Yeah, so we gave it a shot because I like to look for cheap counters when I can. We're doing Savage there. I have one Datacron that gives a boost of stats on a basic ability. This one is for Savage. For an attacker, he doesn't do a ton of damage. He's really always been more of a tank. So any little bit of stat boost, that's going to help him. Okay, so 1917. That movie is all about the gimmick and where they mimic it being one take. It is a movie that has a very thin and empty plot. It doesn't really say anything meaningful or interesting about World War I. I don't even know why the setting of World War I was that relevant for the movie, because they don't really utilize the setting and time period in a way that's all that meaningful, other than the very beginning of the movie and the very end of the movie. I'm going to spoil 1917. Because the trench warfare aspect is really minimal in that movie. The major things that happen with the movie are all happening outside of the trenches, and they don't really show trench warfare. Even at the end, when they're showing the trenches, they're showing the British soldiers exiting the trenches and running on the battlefield. They're showing the main character run along the trenches on the exterior. The majority of that movie is taking place outside of the field of combat, to the point where you're wondering, why is the setting important? Why is any of this relevant? It just becomes this vehicle for filming a movie in that style, and it's there's other movies that do that. There's a famous Hitchcock movie that does it. There's like with a number of long-running TV shows, you will see a lot of them attempt to do at least an episode in one shot, and they're always fun. I like it, but this movie was a very shallow movie that manipulated an audience with its gimmick to think it was more than it was. And that was another one that movie's going to be forgotten. It's not that interesting. It's not worthy of the accolades that it was receiving. All right, this is what we got going on next. We're just talking nonsense now. We're just full nonsense now. We can tap this Oscars and movie one for a while. You can look at any year and see the movies that should have won and should have received more attention. But what I want is to be able to look back at a year of movies, to look back at the Oscars, and for it to be meaningful, for it to be a relevant record of what was important in that year, which when you are not rewarding the right movies, it becomes meaningless. And that's why some of these movies that fans want to receive more attention, because they want their fandoms to receive more plaudits, it doesn't mean anything later. And I don't care. Like when something truly deserves it, like Logan deserves it, The Dark Knight deserves it, Batman arguably deserves it, even though I think I talked about this previously, but we'll revisit it. Batman, I think, is pretty excellent. I like it. It's not as good as The Dark Knight, even though I think its individual pieces are better. Like, I like Batman better. The portrayal of Batman better is what I mean. It is a movie that is less than the sum of its parts. The parts are excellent, but the movie itself is... I think it would have been better as a TV show. Like, some things are undercooked, some things are overcooked. The Selena storyline needed a little bit more. Some of the Alfred things that's just dropped after he goes to the hospital, dropped to the point where maybe that some of that should have been cut out, because I don't know if any movie should be that long. Like, maybe that's old man yells at clouds, but I think part of making a good movie is dealing with the constraints of 90 to 120 minutes and seeing what you can do within that. As soon as you start making things long, it's just... Then I think it's warranted for the audience to ask, did this need to be here? Because there's some movies... I like to look at a movie and just... And think that nothing... that there's no fat on it, that nothing should be taken out, that it was all good, that it all needed to be there. That kind of stuff is rewarding. And I feel like this is going poorly. All right, we're good. A little bit of scares, but we get through it. We're fine. Because with some of the stuff, like take Spider-Man No Way Home, I heard everyone talking about that movie when it was released as it was this fantastic movie. When I finally got around to watching it, I didn't think it was that good. I think a lot of the reason people liked it is because it was fun and the spectacle of it. But I think a lot of people who have gone on for rewatches, they have pulled back their reaction. And this is, I think that's kind of illustrative of the larger point that given the time to reevaluate things, we start realizing some of these things didn't deserve the credit that they received the first time. All right, I'm going to give this attention because I feel like this can spiral out of control. So we want to get rid of Palpatine because Palpatine is the scary engine on this thing, and you can really weaken this Starkiller by eliminating Palpatine. Because now he's not getting all those extra attacks when everybody uses their basics. Alright, we're good. Lose my JKR. I feel like we need to increase relics on my JKR or revisit the mods because I have not been all that pleased with his performance. Alright, we got 2 teams left. Lord Rizza has not attacked yet, but you can see I've taken a number of attacks up against his squads. We got Mon Mothma left. Do I have... No, we already used my Wampa. So I got to find another way to get through this squad, and this is a very respectable Mon Mothma. I don't have Vader anymore. I don't have a lot of proper Mon Mothma counters. So I gotta find... Am I just gonna Grand Inquisitor it? There's at least one Jedi. And we've got an excellent datacron to use with it, so that makes sense. But I'm gonna go back, double check the... Is that Bad Batch? Yeah, the Bad Batch squad we gotta deal with. And figure out how I'm going to counter this thing, because I don't want to get stuck. So it looks... Am I going to cure Hondo this? That seems a little ridiculous. Part of it is because I just want to test out my Hondo, and this is the only team that's left. But Echo's the kind of character who's going to mess up a Hondo. But we've got the Omicron on the Hondo, and I just want to... I want to keep working on figuring out how much he can punch up. But the Bad Batch are the exact kind of squad that is going to mess up a Hondo. They've just got way too much control. But the only place we could test him that was remaining, and we probably should have occurred to me to test him sooner or earlier. So Malik Watt, that wouldn't be bad. Malik Talon Watt plus a Datacron. Yeah, I like it. We can do a little tank revive for insurance and... Which I guess is redundant with Talon. But Talon gives us some... What did I just do? Did that crash or something? I don't know what I did. I guess I backed out and did not do that. And... Well, we'll see if it took 2 attempts or not. I don't remember if that was a crash or a failure or what. I don't remember that. Yeah. Oh, it must have been a crash. Or maybe I backed out. I'm not sure. I could have just second guessed it, or maybe I looked at some stats and looked at JKL lead and figured that was a safer route. Because this just rips it apart. This does very well. So the question is, was that... Okay, so that's attempt 3. So something happened with the Malik. And that footage... I don't know. It's been a week. I no longer recall. This all blurs together. Grand Inquisitor now. Control Katarn, because he is the scary one here. He's the one that makes everybody else scarier. Rip him out. Do it again. Now cooldowns are around. All right. Yeah, so here's the larger point about the movie stuff. You don't want or at least I don't want the Oscars rewarding movies that we all forget about. Like Saving Private Ryan should have been a Best Picture, not Shakespeare in Love, a movie nobody cares about anymore. And these are the egregious things. It should be a reflection of what is going to be relevant for a long time. And those are the things I want to see the Oscars to start eliminating and start doing well and just improve more. It's the attempts that they make to try and reclaim audience by appealing to a greatest common denominator, that waters down how relevant they are. Like, I don't think it helps them. I don't think it increases relevance. It makes it more of a farce. Like, some things should get more attention, but not everything should. Not everything is warranted of that. And I don't think I don't find that a threat on the things that I like, that they're not getting that kind of attention or treatment. Except when they truly deserve it. And most times, like Return of the King, like Two Towers, I like. Two Towers should have been a Best Picture, especially I think that year. I don't remember what else that year is, but Return of the King, that was a makeup doll. Anyway, for a big rant about a topic like this in a year that Maverick has a legitimate chance to win Best Picture, I think is a weak argument because I don't know, the current set of movies, that's kind of the sense that I've been hearing, is a lot of people just kind of want to reward Maverick. At least from the reviewers that I pay attention to. Because it's like a traditional old school movie. I mean, it's basically Top Gun all over again, but it's the type of movie that we don't see enough of anymore, and that I've actually been ranting a lot about on this channel, where that repeated point I've been making about how the baseline of quality for movies has completely dropped to a really atrocious point where just you want to see movies just for a big budget movie with big name cast that used to mean a certain level of quality, which we're not seeing anymore. I mean, we've talked about a number of the horrible ones before, but like, take a movie like Gods of Egypt. They did not make movies that bad before with a cast like that. Or I watched the Clash of the Titans remake. I rarely stop watching movies. If I start something, I'm probably going to finish it. That Clash of the Titan movie was awful. It was pure trash. I couldn't finish that one. I've watched every episode of Manifest. That show's terrible. But I guess it's everybody hate watches that. Anyone who watches it hate watches that show. There's something just like watching a train accident about that show. That's just compelling. So it's not really a great example, but you get it. All right, we're gonna wrap this up soon because we're in the last couple flights. You can see me using the Scythe kind of, but we're going up against a fairly weak combo. So I don't know how meaningful it was. And I'm still trying to split up the fleets. Split up this fleet. Maybe that's what I should be talking about. I didn't use an ideal squad because what I want to find is a way to both use the Chimera and the Scythe. And I definitely didn't use the right ships for that. But I'm way past talking about this stuff right now. Because we're posting 3v3 videos a week late. And nobody cares about 3v3. Like, we're probably going to dump a lot of these videos on the same day. Which I normally don't do. I'm normally a one video a day guy. But 5v5 is starting up, and I cannot keep this camera focused. You know what? I think what we're going to do for... Okay, I know what we're going to do for results. We're just going to show what he did. Once we take this out. All right, come on. We'll show the defense recap is what we're going to do because we've got that information right now. So it's a full clear. Somewhat low on points. So here's the results. He just dominates me on banners, over 100 point advantage. But we do get a little bit of work. Sith Eternal Emperor taking out the Malgus. Grievous attempting that up against Qui-Gon, but that's a fail. But he does not have relics on his B2. Shaak T cleaning up Qui-Gon. JML taking out Dash with Han and Chewie. Rad is eliminating Nute. Wampa's my Grievous, but his job is to draw out Wampa, so I'm fine with that. Excuse me, but it doesn't really matter because what other team is going to use him up against? JKR taking out CLS. Darth Revan versus Maul. Vader against Padme, which... yeah. Padme taking out Radis. That's interesting to me. That's very interesting to me. Okay. Because that, yeah. That I haven't seen. I don't think I've seen that in the data. But I'm into it. I like it. I'm going to make a mental note about that for the future and forget about it by next 3v3 season. But maybe we get a chance to use it in 5v5. Bosk. Iden. Alright. I get it. I'm kind of yawning, so. JMK, Mon Mothma, save that one. Troopers up against Tuskens. JTR taking out the Sign of Django. CLS versus Finn. Oh. Yeah, so I'm going to remember to do this later in the week, but I forgot to do it. This first match, which is Zori Bliss testing. Finn can't be on defense, so we'll fix that in future matches. I do it in one of these matches this week. Radis, Negotiator, Maul. He just rips those all apart. Quick work. I took way too many attempts in what I was doing. Definitely could have played it way more efficiently, but that's how it went. And what's too bad is that's probably this camera. And what I'm trying to say is what's unfortunate is that's probably my best shot for the week because it's only going to get harder from here. But thank you for watching. Be safe out there, everyone. Be excellent to each other. This is still Plays Galaxy of Heroes.